What's up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Barbecue. What I'm going to be making today is going to be some wine braised oxtails. This recipe is in collaboration with another YouTube channel that many of you guys already follow. Name of that channel is Daddy Cooks. I'm going to leave a link to that channel in the iCard above and description below in case you're not familiar with them. Anyway, a little backstory on this recipe. About a year and a half before I started my YouTube channel, maybe about a year, I was looking for an oxtail recipe and ran across one of Daddy Cooks' oxtail recipes. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to that recipe in the iCard above so you can kind of see. But anyway, that video right there is really what gave me the inspiration to start my YouTube channel. So I figured we bring this around full circle, do a collaboration on it, go from there. Anyway, went to my Asian market, got some beautiful oxtails. We're gonna go ahead and season them up. I'm gonna be doing this recipe in steps since it's not really involved. It's actually one of the more simple oxtail recipes, but rather than showing you all the ingredients at once, we're just gonna go ahead and knock them out as we go. Anyway, my first step is going to be to season up these oxtails. We're gonna let them kind of sit in that seasoning for about an hour and a half, 2 hours before we get on to our next step. So let's start with that. As far as our seasoning goes, I'm just going to be using a seasoning called Slap Your Mama. Use whatever seasoning you want. We just want to get this coated up kind of generously. Now, for those of you guys that have only watched Daddy Cooks recently, I'm telling you, if you click on that link that I left in the iCard about the recipe that kind of inspired me to start my YouTube channel, you're going to see that he was far from being you know, the editor that he is now, because he was straight up gangster in that video. And one of the things about that video that made me start my YouTube channel was, you know, it was one of those videos that really wasn't overwhelming. You know, you didn't look at it and feel like it wasn't something that you could do. So I watched one of his more recent videos. I may not have actually started my YouTube channel. So these look good to me. I just pulled these out of the refrigerator, so I'm just going to cover these up, let them sit on the counter for about an hour and a half, then we'll get on to our next step. We've had this meat sitting in that seasoning for a couple hours. Now it's time for us to go ahead and kind of sear it off. Now I'm going to be cooking this in a Dutch oven. If you don't have a Dutch oven, you can use a skillet and then put it in a casserole dish later on. We're going to be searing them. We're going to be cooking everything in the Dutch oven, then we're going to throw it in the oven. Now I'm going to be using the same Slap Your Mama seasoning that I had earlier, and we're just going to be eyeballing this, and we're adding this to our flour. And we don't need to go too heavy since our meat is already seasoned, but we don't want it to be bland. Now that we got that handle, we're going to go ahead, flour generously as you can, these short ribs. Let's just do a couple at a time. Then we're going to start searing it off in our Dutch oven. And we're going to sear all sides. These all browned up, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and set them aside. Now, you know, I was thinking I was going to go ahead and cook this with like some rice or something like that. I have some leftover polenta from another recipe. This is almost going to be like oxtail and grits, just about. So that's what we're going to be doing on this. And once we have this all set aside, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my ingredients, and then we'll start getting this put together. Ingredients we're going to be using, I have some diced up onions, some sliced mushrooms, some Cabernet wine, some fresh basil, and this is the whole leaf. We haven't chopped it or anything. I have some Thai chili peppers, garlic, and bay leaves. We also have some beef broth. As far as the recipe goes, I will leave kind of an approximate recipe, but like some of my other recipes, this is just something to kind of throw together. Anyway, let's go ahead and add our onions. Might as well add our mushrooms too. We're just going to give it a quick stir. And the reason I still have it on this heat is we are going to kind of bring this up to a boil or just under a boil just to speed up the cooking time. We're going to add our short ribs back in. Now, as far as these vegetables go and herbs, we're just going to throw them in whole. And we're going to be blending this up down the road. And that's going to kind of make our gravy. It's not going to be a thick gravy. We got our garlic whole as well. Our bay leaves. And now what we're going to do is add equal parts beef broth. And we want it to be almost covering our short ribs, but not quite. And our wine. You know, let's add a little bit more of that beef broth. Looks like I got just the right amount. Now what I'm going to do is I don't have a lid for this Dutch oven. We're going to go ahead and cover it with some foil. We're going to throw it in our oven at 350 degrees for about 3.5 hours once this starts to simmer a little bit. So here's what we're looking like after being in the oven for about 3.5 hours. I'm going to go ahead and separate out these short ribs. Now remember, I left some of those vegetables in there completely whole. Those we're going to throw into our blender and we're going to blend those up. As far as the mushrooms, I do want to leave as many of the mushrooms in this pot as possible. Now we're going to go ahead and pull out some of these vegetables. I'm going to try to leave as many of the mushroom slices in there as possible. And it looks like most of those other things dissolve down pretty good, so I may not really have to worry about it that much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull all these peppers out, any of the whole garlic cloves. Then I'm going to take a little bit of this liquid and then we're going to blend it up and then add it back into this mixture. You know what? After kind of working with this, I think I'm going to change up what I'm going to do. I did go ahead and pull out all the long strings of basil that was in there and any other like thicker vegetables that didn't get kind of reduced down, but this gravy is looking awesome. I'm going to leave that the same. The garlic that I saw in there, I just went ahead and smashed that up and left it in there, but this is looking great as is, so we can skip that step right there. What we're going to do now, so I'm going to go ahead and add my beef short ribs back in. And I'm just going to throw them back in the oven just to kind of get them heated again. We're going to throw them back in for about another 25 minutes and then it'll be time to plate up. I did go ahead and make some cheese polenta, which should go great with this. So I'll see you back in a little bit. So we are ready to plate up. I'm telling you, this looks absolutely fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and get some of this polenta in here. And then just add a little bit of this gravy to it. And it's time to eat. So before I get into this, I do want to remind you, please stop by, check out Daddy Cooks. If you're not subscribed to his channel, like I said, link to his channel is going to be in the iCard. above and description below. And if you are subscribed to him, I'm gonna leave that old school oxtail video that he did that came out in around 2012 so you could get a good laugh out of that. Anyway, let me get into this right now. This should be fork tender. Fall off the bone tender. That gravy that it made, excellent. I don't know why I don't make this more often. Well, yeah, I do. These oxtails were expensive right here, bad boy. Anyway, man, try this out. Can't get much simpler than this. Thanks for stopping by No Hippie Barbecue. I appreciate it. Comment, subscribe, and I'm out.